Sitaram, and welcome to another episode of the Hindu Perspective, a special program of the Board of Swaha here on IETV. I am Panditishwar Madhu Maharaj, the Secretary of the Board of Swaha, and I kindly ask that you join with us as we continue to explore various contemporary issues affecting our society and indeed the world at large. As we begin, I ask that if it is possible, you can join with me in this prayer. Today is Ganesh Chaut. We join in worshiping Divine Lord Gajanan Swami. In our minds, you can chant that simple but very powerful mantra, Om Ganganapati Namaha. Om Yam Brahma Vedanta Vido Vadanti Param Pradhanam Purushan Tathane Vishwogate Karan Ishwaram Tasmai Namo Vigna Vinashanaya Om Sri Vigneshwaraya Namaha Om Ganganapate Namaha Boli Shri Gajanan Swami Ki Jai Swaha Mata Ki Jai. So, viewers, we know our program, The Hindu Perspective, really is based or takes its mandate then from some of the statements in our scriptures. Tasma kshatram pramanam te karya vyavastitau gyatva shastra vidhanoktam karya kartum harhasi. We say, let the scriptures be our authority in determining what should be done and what should not be done. And, this being the basis, we explore and have been exploring for the last 8 weeks various issues that are most relevant. Today, we have another such topic, which might, I dare say, be very controversial. But I ask you to stay with us for the next hours. We do have a special guest with us, and Pandit Jaidat Maharaj will give some further information as to our program today. Panditji.
Sitram to our viewers on ITV, and of course, welcome to the Hindu Perspective. And today we have a very distinguished panel. We have our senior Pandit Gyandev Prasad, member of the Board of Swaha. We have the Secretary of the Board of Swaha, Pandit Ishwar. And with us we have Mr. Ronald Chakri, who is an attorney at law and very distinguished in his career, and someone who has served an organization in different capacities. So we say a special welcome to Mr. Ronald, who is a legal mind. And the topic today, of course, requires that input. So as was mentioned by Pandit Ishwar, that the topics that we explore are what we see face in the wider society. There are many issues, many topics of interest to us as citizens. And of course, our purpose is to just share what is the Hindu perspective taken from scriptures. And we are not making any pronouncements on anything. We are simply sharing what are the realities in our society, as well as what scriptures say. And at the end of it, we leave it up to every individual to decide for themselves, what is their view and what conclusions they can draw. Today, we want to look at the topic in a very, simple way, what we call death, killing, and this takes many forms. And of course, as we go through the program, you're free to call into the program to ask your questions, to send your messages, 4708103, 4708103. And during the course of the program, we'll be able to assimilate what is being asked and to share those on the program with our panelists so that they can provide answers as best as possible. So that the topic today is killing, and we see many manifestations of that in our society. One of it that is very obvious is the high rate of crime that we see in our society. And I think that maybe the start of it, we will ask Pandit Gyandev to just share some perspectives. We will move on to Pandit Ishwar, and then we'll pass over to our special guest, Mr. Ronald Chakri, to give his view. And so we'll continue in that discussion and come up with our perspective on this phenomenon that we see in our society. So, Pandit Gyandev, we pass over to you.
Thank you, Pandit Jaidat. Special welcome to our guests, Ishwar, Ronald, and Pandit Ishwar is here with us. I want to begin the discussion by just quoting from a poem, a short part, and then you hold me as part of it. And from that, I'll just lead on to what we want to discuss. Jay just said. The poem says, and I quote, "To kill, regardless, becomes a habit. Chicken, cow, or pig, what's the limit? It's the end of the week, mayhem. Friday escaped from them. Meat is meat. Man, go to sheep." Now, this brings me to the point of many people believe that killing is not just, is a simple act. According to the poet, killing becomes a habit. So if you can kill a chicken today, tomorrow kill a goat, next day kill a cow, next day kill a human being. The killing becomes part of you. So we begin with that precept of Hinduism, vegetarianism. We are saying from that point of view, man must be vegetarian because it does not condone killing, which becomes a habit. Everything you do becomes a habit after all. So the discussion today will be dealing with killing overall, a big heading, and subheading is, I will try to pass on the pretty sure, so I let the lawyer think about these questions and come to it, then I pass on pretty sure. Does the state have a right to kill? In other words, should there be capital punishment? And we talk about legal standpoint. The lawyer today will be giving us what the law said, what the law says about the state and killing. Citizens, if a citizen kills, does the state have a right to kill that citizen for killing? What the law says. Now we have the Children's Act, and they define what a child is. The lawyer will give us definition. Anybody under 18 and under. But how much under are you talking about? 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Does the law state what's the child or who is the child? You know the upper limit, 18 years. The lower limit is what? Conception, 3 months, 4 months. So these are some of the discussions that I get into. In other words, if you're going to condone abortion, from when? So basically killing, according to laws. Children have rights, and we have defined what a child is. Now, Hinduism does not condone killing. And I'm not going to pass judges, we're not going to pass judgment. We're just saying what the religion says. And then we'll come back later and discuss, after Parishwar makes input, as to wars. And many people have a misconception that Arjun was told by Krishna Bhagavan to go and kill. That is false from the truth. Krishna Bhagavan never tell Arjun go and kill. We get into that as we go along. So I'll pass on for Ishwar, Secretary Dharmana, who will make his input in this important discussion on killing. Ishwar.
I thank you, Panditji. So indeed a very, serious topic for this evening for you to consider. And many of you may have heard the phrase, well, you know the word ahimsa. You may have heard the phrase ahimsa paramo dharma. Ahimsa tata ahimsa paro dhamma, which is taken from Mahabharata and found in other scriptures as well, and of course was popularized by Mahatma Gandhi. He didn't actually make that statement. That was there thousands of years ago in our scriptures. But under certain contexts and it implies certain things. So ahimsa is the highest dharma. Ahimsa is the highest form of self-control. This is what is written there. And this is the ideal, of course, that we are striving for. We are all taught, to be reserved, to keep your cool, to ensure that you don't let your emotions get the better of you. And for you to be in control and not allow, as we say from time to time, as pundits do not allow the lower tendencies, anger and jealousy take root in your mind and control you. But so ahimsa and non-violence or non-aggression, as some will say, is indeed commendable. But then, while I'm saying it is highest dharma, some may say, as that statement stresses, and indeed, it may be the best practice. And it's the general rule then, but I shouldn't say it's a rule, but it's the general policy. But sometimes there are exceptions. There are exceptions. For instance, if a bandit or a robber were to come into your home and starts destroying and hurting and harming, How can we say if you have an opportunity that ahimsa is the best dharma? Just allow it. Just stand by and do nothing. Of course, we may not be equipped or able to act, but what if you're acting in self-defense? What if you're acting to protect others? And as you see, Pandit Gandhi mentioned Bhagavad Gita and, the concept of killing or fighting and violence in the context of what is written in our scriptures. I'm saying that yes, while the general, policy or the protocol may be to strive as far as possible for non-violence, ahimsa, there are times when man, woman, child, anybody could be called to action. Not that you want to be violent, but it may become necessary. And this is something all of us as followers of Sanatana Dharma, as Hindus, as human beings, have to come to terms with. And today, we're discussing a little bit more what our religion says, what the law of the land says. So I'm saying non-violence, yes, is the ideal, but there are times where you have to stand up and fight and do something more, not just sitting back and allowing, wickedness and evil to prevail. I hand over, I think, Pandit Gandhi, we can go to our lawyer, Mr. Ronald.
Let Ronald answer these questions which you have asked considering definitions from a legal standpoint about killing, state killing, individual killing, and to what extent is killing allowed, in what situation, and abortion, well, you're saying abortion is killing of a human being in the fetus or whatever. The lawyer.
Sitaram, thank you very much, Pandit Gandhi, Pandit Ishwar, and Pandit Jaidat, and Sitaram to all our viewers on ITV and on Facebook, of course. So there's a lot of questions and very, very broad questions as well, but very good questions and in keeping with the topic that we're discussing on killings. Pandit Gandhi, at the very outset, asked a very important question about state killings. So we all know in Trinidad and Tobago, we have had hangings in the past. Hangings is a form of state killing. Now, there are questions to be asked in respect of that act of hanging. Is it still legal? Why do we not practice it? Because there are discussions that are held all the time, even at the level of secondary schools, in essay competitions and debates and so on. Is hanging legal, or should hanging become illegal, or should hanging be outlawed? And does the state have the right to kill someone, and so on and so forth? So that's a very wide question. But the answer in Trinidad and Tobago is that we do have that, the law does provide for that. How often do we do it? And why don't we do it are the bigger questions. And I imagine the authorities will be able to answer those questions. However, if you're looking at killing from a moral standpoint, whether it is the state or individual, it is wrong. All right? Now, the state, or well, we wouldn't say the government, the state would use some form of ending one's life, where number one, the law provides for it, where convention provides for it. And only when that person is on what we call death row, at the very end of the line, then that will happen. Now we have many in
Ronald, let me just interrupt a minute, please. We
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
get some direct answers. First of all, I know if you think it's right and wrong, we can't go along that route. We say we're wrong to kill. We are not going that moral route. We are asking, we want to clarify, is the law still on the books that killing can be done, hanging can be done? Yes or no?
Yes, yes, it
Right.
is. It is.
So hanging
So
can be done.
yes, of course. Yeah.
So why is it not done?
That is not a question for me to answer. That's a question for the state to answer, or the government.
Okay, you can answer. Okay, let's move on then. Since you can answer a question, you move on. The next question. When someone
Yeah.
kills, right now crime is very high, right?
Yes.
And an individual kills someone and he goes before a judge. The judge has discretion to say, look, you killed someone, so I'm going to hang you. Or you killed someone, so I'm going to give you a jail sentence. This one I ask, what the law caters for a judge sitting on a bench.
So, Pandit, again, that is a very wide question, because every case is taken on an individual case, and it all depends on the legal arguments for the facts. and the legal arguments that are brought before the court and that are heard and so on. And this is why we have an issue in Trinidad and Tobago where matters like this take years and years of court to be heard and to be adjudged. Because evidence, and I don't want to go into the law itself. Number one, I'm not a practitioner in criminal law, so I definitely don't want to step on into that realm of that part of the discussion. But really, once the argument is there, once the evidence is there that this person has in fact killed someone, whether it is through murder or manslaughter, the judgment goes with it. And so for one, as I said, to reach to the point where they are allowed to be killed by the state on death row, that is at the very, very end. So every case is taken on its own individual basis, right?
I understand all that.
I know the answer you're looking for.
No, I'm not looking for the answer. We are looking for the legal perspective. We are looking for the perspective from a legal point of view. Let me bring point Jairat. Jairat will give a clarification in his opinion, according to what Ronald said. You have manslaughter, you have murder. Of course, both are different. All depends on intent, right? Now, Jairat, in your opinion, as the lawyer is speaking, do we condone hanging at all as a Hindu society, as a Hindu organization? Do we condone the hanging in any circumstance at all? Would we say yes, hang him, or do hang him?
All right, Pandit. Okay, so we are the legal person, but yeah, I'll give my view. I'm not a legal person by any means, but
from a Hindu point of view, yes.
From a Hindu point of view, and for me to answer that, I have to look at a broader view. Hanging to me is one form of punishment. So we're looking at the issue of punishment, but the way that I have always seen it, and gave this as my view, my view of ethics is this, that nothing is absolute. There's no right and wrong, and everything is contextual. So that in the case of killing where there is justified killing, that's my view. So, for example, if you have a situation where someone may threaten to blow up a building and kill 1,000 persons, if you see someone coming towards your family with a gun or cutlass, or somebody has a bomb strapped to their chest, and you have that opportunity to kill one person to save the life of 10,000, in which case, there is some level of collateral damage. In that case, it is justified. And again, we have Ronald, who I'm sure that even if he's not a criminal lawyer, that the issue of ethics and different types of ethics, teleology, and all of that, he would have done those studies. So for me, I believe that there's no absolute right or wrong. It is all contextual, and it really depends on the circumstances and the situation. So we spoke about Bhagavad Gita. We spoke about the instance of Sri Ram, where he destroyed Ravan. It was not just a straight case of killing Ravan, but there were processes, there were steps that would have been tried before it reached that stage. And I think that what Ronald is also saying is that there is a process and there's a system. And even in the legal system, there is an attempt to rehabilitate. And even if someone may be sentenced, there are circumstances that may allow a lesson of that sentence based on circumstances, based on behavior and all of that. So, I mean, to say there is a straight answer that whether killing is right or wrong, for me personally, I cannot say yes to that. And I will say that everything is circumstantial, and is really based on what is the best for the society. Because at the end of the day, when you look at scriptures, even from the Hindu perspective, everything that was done, including things like avatar, all of that was always based on what is the best for the society and what is best for continuity of the society. Even what Pandit Ishwar mentioned, that ahimsa, paraho dharma, that the first dharma is non-violence. To me, one interpretation of that is that if there's violence, then there can never be peace. If there's no peace, then no society can grow. So that in order for a society to grow and develop, you must have some level of non-aggression and all of those things, which again speaks to the greater good. So whether it is killing, whether it is not killing, at the end of the day, what matters the most is what is in the greatest good of the society. So I know that we are scheduled for a break. So what we'll do, we'll take our break and then we'll come back and we'll continue our discussions.
Join us as we explore contemporary issues facing societies worldwide. Interviews and discussions featuring local and international experts. You can participate in our live call-in segments, a program of the board of SWAHA.
Join live every Tuesday evening at 4:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. and prime time at 7 p.m. Are you interested in becoming a news reporter? ITV Newsroom is offering internships. Send your resume to news@itvtt.com.
Welcome back to the Hindu Perspectives. In studio with us, we have Panajairat, President of SWAHA, and Ishwar Madhu Maharaj, Secretary of the Board of SWAHA, and one of our long-standing members of SWAHA, Ishwar Ronald, who is a lawyer. And he is here to give us the legal standpoint, and other opinions that are legally based. I'll go on upon Ishwar and ask him this question, and he will respond as he sees fit, and then we'll go on to Ronald afterwards. But Ishwar mentioned about Mahatma Gandhi and non-violence. Now, I mentioned earlier that the Gita doesn't say anything about killing. People mightn't believe this. But Krishna can never tell Arjuna to kill anybody. So people have the wrong misconception, sorry. And let me just make a statement and pass on to Ishwar. There is something called, whatever you do, there are consequences, karma. How can you explain Mahatma Gandhi is preaching non-violence and he died by getting 3 bullets in his chest? He is preaching non-violence, but he died through violent means. How you explain that? These are the technicalities we have to understand. This is why when you say Gita preaches non-violence, it's not that. What Gita preaches, we get into that. But Padana Parishwar is very versed in Gita and other scriptures. What Gita really tells us about killing, about this world, apart from the fact that Krishna Bhagavan said, "Jo paida hote hai, wo nishchit roop se mar jayenge." Those who have been born will definitely die, but die on their own accord. Will die old age or disease, but killing somebody. So, Ishwarji, you can I go into this a little bit and then pass on to Ronald? How it is if you say Gandhi was preaching non-violence and he died a violent death? Tell me that order. Panishwarji.
I thank you, Pandit. So that I could say is that's a very tough question to answer, but I mean I will try. And the thing is, Mahatma Gandhi, while I mentioned, yes, he used it as a slogan that he popularized that slogan really, Ahimsa Paramo Dharma. As I said, it wasn't his, and also, you can look at it from the point of view of karma, that we all have, our own karma to deal with, to face at some point in time. So Mahatma Gandhi, even though he preached, if you look at the history of Mahatma Gandhi, and we can't speak about previous life, but even in his own life, in his earlier life, he himself would have committed certain indiscretions, and we're not here to ill speak anyone, certainly not Mahatma Gandhi. But the point is, we all have our own karma, accumulated burden that we are carrying with us, whether good or bad, and we will see even at the end, Lord Krishna himself had to, he could not escape this law of karma. And throughout Bhagavad Gita, to say that I choose not to dwell on I know the question was posed, what does it say directly about killing? Krishna Bhagwan throughout Gita spoke about, dharma, protecting righteousness, and doing whatever is necessary, let me put it this way, to ensure that adharma, unrighteousness, is removed, eradicated, removed from the face of the earth. And in the case of, that battle, that Mahabharata battle that took place, we see that, of course, you had one side, the Kauravas, um, the cousins of the Pandavas, the Kauravas representing, adharma, unrighteousness for the most part. And the Pandavas, of course, on whose side Sri Krishna Bhagwan stood as the charioteer of Arjun, representing righteousness. So it isn't so much that the Lord said to kill, and he had to engage in battle to kill his cousins and friends and people on the other side, but more for the protection of dharma, for to uplift dharma. The Lord Himself said, "Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata." He comes when there's a decline in righteousness, when adharma, unrighteousness, is ascending, and so He came to help put things back in order. And from that point of view, we could look at how the war took place. And there are some who say the war, while there's the physical war, the Mahabharat war, is metaphysical also. In our own minds, what are we killing? What are we destroying? What are we removing from our minds and from our lives? But I was making the point about karma, and I don't want that point to be lost with the other things that I said. Even Lord Krishna had to face the karma. Remember when Prabhu Sri Ram, hid behind a tree and shot at Bali? Remember Bali and Sugriv fighting? And when he shot at Bali, and of course Bali was defeated, Bali was killed. In time to come, the next avatar, the Lord Himself was shot. Remember, He was shot in the heel by an arrow from Jar Bharat. And so even the Lord could not escape that same law, that same reality then of karma. And this is what I wanted to put to you to bring into the mix then into our discussion, the whole idea of karma, and that there will be repercussions. So even for the hangman, even for the lawyer, right, Ronald, if for all of us, to ensure that we do the very best that we can. And I agree with Pandit Jaidat, Panaganda, I want to say that is not always black and white. And based on the situation, it may not be black, may not be white. It could be different shades of gray, as we say. And you have to find the best fit for the situation, to ensure that you do the best for all parties concerned. So it isn't always as straightforward as that, in my opinion. Um, right, Panagandu, I think we could go. We're going to Ronald to hear his perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Panitishwar. So, Pandit Gandhi, that example you used with Mahatma Gandhi's death, um, it is one of the great conundrums of this life, at least for me. Yes, you preach nonviolence and so on, and you are killed by one of the very highest points of violence. It brings to mind the point that we don't choose our death, or we don't know where we will meet death. He met death at gunpoint, or through gunfire, through a gunshot. Um, so you may stand for all of the very virtuous principles. Well, who is to say, Bhagwan forbid, that I am not shot on my way out of any building anywhere at any time, for that matter. So, and when that happens, the state has to deal with the aggressor, the person who committed the crime. And so we have the whole issue of the difference between manslaughter and murder and so on and so forth. So it is interesting to know that somebody who practiced and preached so much non-aggression, non-violence, was killed by one of the our weapon, by gunfire, by somebody or some party that didn't agree with it. Yeah. So that remains a conundrum. And as I was mentioning to Pandit Gandhi at the very, very start of the program, to which he disagreed with me, a lot of these legal or legal points or questions, answers to them may bring more questions than there may be answers. Yeah, in many, as the discussion goes on, you will see. Yeah. Thanks, Manitishwar.
We'll pass it on to Jairat. Jairat, you can continue with the discussion and talk about abortion in Indonesia.
Yes,
that you had identified.
So definitely, well, yes. So those are some of the questions that would have arisen, and we'll bring them up. But just to add to the discussion, and I want to agree with what our lawyer is saying, Mr. Chakri, 100% that in the case of Gandhi, to say that it is karma that he's fighting for, non-violence, what is called satyagraha, and then he was shot himself is like saying, if someone is advocating for road safety and they themselves driving safe but got in an accident, or someone who's a lifeguard drowned, that it is their karma that has caused that or their action. We are looking at the issue of killing. And it was not Gandhi who did the killing, but he was the victim. So to me, that sounds like victim blaming. I can't remember the name of the person who killed him, but if we are talking about killing, then someone would have killed Gandhi. And that sin falls not on Gandhi, that's a result of his karma. At least not the way I see it. But that is something that was perpetrated upon an innocent person. And if you were to use that argument that is being used at Gandhi and karma, then we can extend that if we are saying the Hindu perspective to say that any crime in this country, any murder, whatever we see, any accident, then the person is deserving of that if we are using that argument. And to me, that's a very dangerous argument. And we have to be careful of those things because the reality is that a lot of these things are perpetrated by others who would have negative intent and all of that. And if you're looking at the law of karma, the karma falls on the person who is perpetrating that crime. And I don't think that and Ronald, I think you mentioned that also. No one knows, none of us knows what happens in past lifetime. So how are we to say that it is, the actions in this life is responsible for what we face? We have thousands of years, at least based on the Hindu perspective, of living, and we're bringing karma forward, the sum total of all of our karma. And therefore, how do we know that whatever experience that we are facing in this life, whether it be positive or negative, which actions, which set of actions causes that? So to make that connection or to make that correlation between Gandhi, preaching satyagraha, and then on the other end of it, being shot for it. I mean, for myself, I think I just personally think it's a stretch on it. I know we have different views, and I know we'll disagree on those things. Okay, but it's interesting conversations and discussions, and of course we can continue those things. But I want to bring something to the table, and again, from have we speak to many individuals once since we started this program, and of course, when we let them know the topic that they are discussing or we are discussing, they tell us some of the things that they want to hear. And one of it, when it comes to killing, and Ronald, maybe you can help us with this. We know that there is the death penalty, and in some cases, I know the laws in Trinidad, we know that there's hanging, but there's also euthanasia where there's the mercy killing, and there's a lethal injection and all of those things. So that someone may perform a brutal crime, but it seems as if the penalty, doesn't match that crime. So that person may be in jail, and we may say that, well, they are too dangerous to be reintegrated into society, and therefore there's some lethal injection, some mercy killing, which in no way matches the pain that someone feels. So that from a Hindu perspective, we may say that, well, the karma doesn't add up. But how, if it is there's something you can answer, at least give us your view on it. What is the rationale behind that, and how is that considered justice? Because it seems as if the person who was the victim would suffer and continue suffering, while the perpetrator is not suffering the extent to match the crime that was performed. Because I know that these are normally done for heinous crimes. So I don't know, Ronald, if you can share some light on that.
Right. Thanks, Jayden. So you're asking about, so I just want to make sure that I understand what you're asking me, that, essentially, why would someone be, who is on death row, be hung as opposed to being issued or administered the lethal injection? Am I correct?
So I'm asking that, okay, someone who is on death row would have perpetrated a heinous crime. The victim remains and suffers psychological trauma and all of that. But at the same time, if you are being hung, that may seem as a very, something that will probably match the pain of the victim. But then you have this lethal injection, which unless I am wrong, is not as painful as being hung and all of that. So therefore, it seems as if the punishment does not match the crime, at least in the eyes of the layman. Yeah.
So number one, I want to say that I don't think that we use lethal injection. I can't recall cases of use of lethal injection in Trinidad and Tobago. I could be wrong. I am subject to correction. I'm subject to further research on that. But let us describe, let us take that word pain that you used. That is a very subjective word. So we have the victim whose, let us say, mother was murdered by the person on death row, right? And it's proven and so on, and so they ended up on death row. So the victim is suffering from the pain of the loss and the nature of the death of his mother. Yes? And so this person, the perpetrator, the accused, has now ended up on death row. Okay? Probably very remorseful, probably going through all different kinds of things. Knowing that they are on death row, knowing that they may be hung or issued the lethal injection or whatever other means. Okay? Let us, very, very often, we neglect to understand or take into account the psychological impact that that person, or the psychological effect that is happening or occurring in the psyche of that person. How that they may even be moved into wanting to commit suicide. They are already confined, they're already imprisoned, so their rights and their freedoms are taken away, essentially. Not their rights really, but yes, their freedoms are taken away. And their freedom movement, all of those things are taken away from them. And now you know that you are going to die. Well, is it that you are going to, the thought of dying itself will contribute to killing you? Or will you use that period of time to make peace, as we say very colloquially, make peace with your maker, and so on and so forth? So isn't that some type of pain as well? Now, for a victim, again, a very subjective issue, no punishment that can be administered, whether it's hanging, beating, whatever it is, however heinous punishment it may be, to that accused, will ever equate to the pain I feel of having lost my relative or whomever that you have killed or that individual has killed, right? It will never equate. Those are psychological discussions for people in that kind of practice. But really, is it not correct to say that the accused himself, having to undergo that process, having probably, as I said, been remorseful or begging for forgiveness or having to come to terms with what he or she has done, isn't that pain itself?
Yes,
that's my point. Yeah.
Yeah, I could understand that argument. I think that's a good argument also. But of course that is subject to the system working properly, which I mean we don't have to look at Trinidad alone. We look at other places, right? But I mean we know that there are a lot of breakdowns in the system and all of that. But I personally, Ronald, I like that argument, and I understand there's that psychological pain even for the perpetrator while you're waiting for that and all of that. So I can accept that argument.
And this is why Panaganio needs to be unmuted though, yes, if I may say.
Check your mic. Check your mic.
Your mic. Studio. You have to unmute the mic.
Right.
Right.
So yeah. Go back.
Let us say the whole thing over. Yeah.
What I'm saying is that we want to know is if there is any law and legal and loyal answer, just briefly, if we're going to put you sure. Somebody has bed lying on, I know somebody lying on that bed, been 3 years now. If the family say, look, every month I have to pay $5,000 to maintain this person's life. Can I ask the doctor or for mercy killing? Can we do this? This was from a legal standpoint. So we have to take a break. When you come back, you go to the Panishwar from a religious standpoint. Do we have mercy killing? And then the lawyer will answer, do we have it on the books, the laws for mercy killing? So we'll take our break now and come back. Stay with us. Join us as we explore contemporary issues facing societies worldwide. Interviews and discussions featuring local and international experts. You can participate in our live call-in segments, a program of the board of SWAHA.
Join live every Tuesday evening at 4:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. and prime time at 7 p.m. Are you interested in becoming a news reporter? ITV Newsroom is offering internships. Send your resume to news@itvtt.com.
Right, Sitaram, welcome once again, viewers. So the question posed by Pandit Gyandeo was about euthanasia and the fact that sometimes you may have families who are suffering because, of course, they would have a loved one for years, as he said, 3, 4 years, unable to move, unable to engage in, suffering from terminal illness. What does Sanatan Dharma or Hinduism say? And indeed, this is one that I feel that again is a controversial issue. What position, and it is difficult within Hinduism. I will say that there are different perspectives. So this is the Hindu perspective, yes, but there's no one overriding perspective, in my opinion. From looking at the very fundamental question, it is still taking a life, and you are taking the life of an individual who we suppose cannot come back to full capacity, is a terminal illness perhaps, and so the person cannot be revived, resuscitated, or come back to normal. And so we may, suppose that it's justified in that case, but we may not be entirely sure, 100% sure, and we are still going against what we spoke about nonviolence in the beginning. Panagyamdev himself mentioned quite forcefully that Lord Krishna never said to kill. He never said to kill. But I'm saying, in certain circumstances, of course, one may say that you're justified in doing so. But this is an individual who has not been violent. This is an individual who is suffering, your own loved one. So you are doing it merely out of, wanting to ease the pain and suffering of that individual. And I'm saying, and this again is open to, various opinions. But from my point of view and where I see it, it does contradict generally the statements in Sanatan Dharma and our scriptures against killing. So this is my point of view with that. We could get a perspective also from, I think, Ronald, and then we hear from Panajaidat. Ronald?
Sure. Thank you, Paritishwar. So that is a very interesting topic. And in preparation to discuss that topic, what I did is I approached several persons who are medical doctors. I didn't approach any of my colleagues in the legal fraternity, because at the end of the day, it is a doctor that has not just, they must have the legal knowledge, but the practical knowledge and the experience in dealing with this. 99% of the doctors that I spoke to cannot answer me. And I don't mean that they don't have the knowledge or the information to answer, and it is because that it is a very, very touchy and sensitive issue. And so my guidance in answering that, it doesn't come from the law too much. It comes from the Code of Ethics in Medical Practice of Medicine from the Medical Board of Trinidad and Tobago, which is a code of practice. Essentially, it is how doctors are supposed to practice and within the law, because it addresses several legal issues as well. And it is quite a lot to read, but I want to read the first paragraph under what that topic in medicine or medical practice is called medical futility. It says, the determination of medical futility is a difficult one. So just for the sake of our viewers, we're talking about pulling the plug on somebody. They're lying there, they've turned into what we call a vegetative state. They can't do anything for themselves, they are deteriorating, and we find that they are suffering. Well, a decision has to be made. And we pundits, you will know you are faced with this question by families all the time. Oh, the doctor says so, the hospital says so, what should I do, pundit? And I know as a pundit, I would never like to be in your shoes.
Mr. Lawyer, Mr. Ronald, lawyer, please. Lawyer,
So,
Ronald, can you hear me? We understand
Yes,
the medical part, fine. We understand that we are asking from a legal standpoint. Is there law in Trinidad preventing that? If you do it, will you be charged?
Pandit, as I said, there is no law. I don't want to say there is no law. There are laws, yes, but the law is really the practice of doing that is one that the law leaves up to doctors, the medical professionals. And so the code of ethics, the medical code of ethics addresses that. It is a large document. I
So I
can't read the
understand
whole
that,
document.
lawyer, I
Yeah.
understand that, Mr. Lawyer,
So
sir.
at the end of the day, Pandit, it is up to the doctors.
No,
And so
we can't live in a society. So you say during COVID, a doctor can decide that man leave him out and die, that he don't deserve treatment. Are you saying it is up to the doctor to decide who live and who die? And the law has nothing
I
to say about it?
am
We are
we are
asking you,
not
you are
going
here as a lawyer. We are a lawyer. We don't talk on behalf of the doctors. Talk on behalf of the lawyers.
yeah.
The lawyer, well, you are a lawyer, take a case like that, if you're a criminal lawyer.
So
Yes or no?
so number one, I wouldn't answer that question. I
Alright,
wouldn't
okay.
answer that question.
Well, we
That
move
is a
on.
very no.
Well, let's
it
move on.
is-
Let's
So
move on.
this
Let's move
is
on, Mr. Lawyer. The next question was
issue
asked
of medical-
initially. The next question was about abortion. What the law says about
Yeah.
it?
Okay, so the law is very specific as it regards to that, right? Right. So, and in medical terminology and in medical law, that is under the termination of pregnancy, the medical termination of pregnancy, and the very code of ethics refers to this and says sections 56 and 57 of the Offences Against the Person Act, Chapter 1108, prohibit the unlawful procuring of an abortion or assisting in procuring an abortion. Now, I've gone into investigating and reading the very sections 56 and 57 of the Offences of Person Act, which go deeper and deeper into that. At the end of the day, it is not allowed. But, and this is where there are gray areas, and subject to interpretation under certain circumstances, which doctors will determine, and which doctors under this code will determine. So both Pandit, having to pull the plug on somebody who's suffering, and in the case of abortion, are very, very subjective areas. At least in my opinion, I am subject to correction. I'm subject to further interpretation. We all are. But in terms of euthanasia and abortion, in terms of abortion specifically, the law says no, save and except in certain circumstances.
All right.
Those certain circumstances.
We accept that. Let's pass on Panjayat. Panjayat, eager to make an input here.
No, well, I enjoy the discussion, right? And I understand the area that, I mean, you have one end that asking for black and white, and another end that is saying that there is no black and white. And I stand on the side of that there is no black and white in any circumstances. And while there may be legal, so there, and in the discussion, I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing law and I'm in ethics, and I'm assuming that there is two parts of it. There's a legal argument and there's a moral argument for doing something. So I would assume that in a case where there's a risk to the life of a mother, or maybe rape, or whatever it may be, or that child is going to die, and by dying is going to cause death. Those are part of the circumstances, right? And the medical experts are the ones to make that call without it being illegal and without the doctor going to jail, which is different from I decided I'm going to pull the plug, or I'm going to kill the person when I go to visit them because they are suffering, or I decide I'm going to, perform abortion because in my view, I am not a licensed medical practitioner. So even if the circumstances may be justified, it will be illegal for me to do it because what the law is saying is that persons who can make that call, they are licensed practitioners. So I don't know if I got that right, Ronald.
I also want to go further to say, and this will probably, I want to direct this point upon Gambia. The law is never in black and white all the time. So we have the Offences Against the Person Act, which is good law, that is legislation. But there's also common law, which is decided cases, judgments, and so on and so forth, in which legal principles have emanated over time. So you would find a lot of the answers in these or in these, I want to say, in common law, or you may find more answers there. And of course, that requires, of course, further discussion, takes us into the next program, I am sure. But definitely, in those two cases, there's some gray areas. There are some gray areas. Yeah.
Let me just what happened? We have too many gray areas.
We
Too
do.
many gray areas. And what I'm gathering here, I'm going to pass on upon the Ishwar, the Secretary General, because what happened here, I'm hearing the legal person have more privilege than a lawyer. So a legal person will say something, I'm going back up in court. I say, I took his life because you're suffering or because whatever reason. So I'm going to pass on upon the Ishwar. And I can read for us that chapter 16, verse 21, and give us, Ishwar. Yeah, right there, chapter 16, verse 21. That same verse we had quote from you had quoted from the beginning. But
Yeah.
verse 21, chapter 16. Krishna Bhagavan said to kill what? And here what Krishna Bhagavan said, what to kill? What you told him to kill? Panditji, Pandishwar.
Yes, but Panaji, you could. This would be verse 21.
21, yeah, chapter 16, verse 21, yeah.
All right, Panaji, if you have it, you could just go through at
Okay.
that one
I'll
slips
say,
me right now. Yeah.
I just want to clarify anything. I said Krishna Bhagavan not to originally kill anybody. And this is what it says here. He says, calm, crowd, or lobe. He said, don't have desire for kingdom. Don't be angry at your fellow, what you call them, nephews. Don't be angry at them because you're taking kingdom away. Don't be greedy for wealth and prosperity. He said, these are the three enemies you have to kill. In the Gita, the entire Gita is about that. Calm, crowd, or lobe. That is desire, anger, and greed. Kill these, not anybody. You're not going to kill people. This is why Krishna Bhagavan had a long disposition about the soul and the body dies. That's why he came to all that. Where he's saying, do not see anybody as enemy. See the enemy inside of us. We try triple gateways to hell, Panjishwar. And then Panchayat as we conclude. Panjishwar?
Yeah. So Panaji, that brings it all into a clearer perspective, and this is the way we should approach it in Hinduism if we are looking at what Bhagwan Krishna says. So for many, as I said, if you take it at the philosophical level or metaphysical, as we sometimes say, you may look at Bhagavad Gita, and some will say that the chariot is the body itself. The chariot is the body, or intellect is the driver. The mind is the rope, and the five senses are the horses pulling the chariot. So really, I mean, what is Gita about? If we were to look at it from that philosophical point of view, Lord Krishna is merely teaching you and I to keep our own emotions in check. This is what I was saying in the beginning. It isn't that he's speaking about being violent, hurting others, harming others, and just killing. But of course, people extrapolate and they will use or justify to suit their own ends exactly certain statements of Bhagwan Krishna. So to say that Lord Krishna sanctions, as you may see, many other there are other religions that do it as well, and may say that scriptures justify X, Y, and Z when it comes to killing and aggression or violence. We shouldn't just take a simplistic view and say that Lord Krishna sanctions it in Bhagavad Gita, so it is okay in Hinduism. As I keep saying from the very beginning, as far as possible, try to preserve life, sustain, support each other. Non-aggression, non-violence is the way, but of course there may be certain exceptions, right? So Panagandeo, that's my perspective on it. I think we'll hear from Panajay that.
Panjayat, yes.
Yes. So final comment and then we'll wrap up, right? Yes. So I agree. I mean, we're not talking about indiscriminate killing here. I think that goes without saying. But in my view, and again, we're looking at the Hindu perspective that in Hinduism, we look at the human body as only 20% of who we are. We believe there are the five kosh, the Annamaya kosh, the Pranamaya kosh, the Manmaya kosh, the Vigyanmaya kosh, and the Anandmaya kosh. When you say that you kill someone, in with the Western world, we equate the body with the person. When the body is gone, the person is gone. That is different in Hinduism. And I think that would have been the basis of why Sri Krishna said that, who do you kill? These kings have been here in the past, here They are here now, they'll be here in the future. He didn't mean Dronacharya or any of them in the physical form that they are in, but it means that Jiva Atma, that individual soul, that is part and parcel of that super soul. So when we say that we kill someone or someone dies, we only talk about the anime codes, that's the physical body. That's the body that we see, but it's the nature of man to identify with his biological body. So I think that if you're looking at a deeper explanation and understanding of Hinduism and this idea of killing, when you talk about killing, yes, all of those things and killing the negative qualities and all of that is important and that is necessary also. But we also look at the fact that when this body dies, whether it dies out of natural old age, whether it dies out of sickness, whether you pull the plug, whether you hang the body and all of that, it is this physical body. We don't kill who we really are because we are not this body. And that is a fundamental teaching of Hinduism. So that is my opinion and my view. And we only have a minute remaining, so I'll just use it to wrap up. And I know this has been a great discussion and great exchange. At the end of it, as we said, we are not taking a view on anything, so that we have had good discussions. And I want to take the opportunity on behalf of the entire board of SWAHA and the panelists, in particular Pandit Yandeo, Pandit Ishwar, to thank you, Mr. Ronald Chakri, long-standing member of our organization, for being here and of course for participating in our discussion and for lending your expertise. And I'm sure that topics like this are going to come up again in the future. And we hope that if we need you again, you'll be willing to come on the program and share your expertise with us. So this brings us to the end of the program. And thank you again, Ronald. Thank you again, Pandit Gyandev and Pandit Ishwar. And of course, invite you to continue joining with us next week again on Hindu Perspective. Sitaram.
Sitaram.